It's time for your Anchorage real estate market update, and we have got some really interesting things to be going over today and just taking a look and seeing what's going on in this market that's such a driver for the real estate industry just across the entire board here in Alaska. Before we do, though, do make sure you go ahead and give this video a like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. And if I haven't said so already, my name is Jamin Goecker. I'm an associate real estate broker in the state of Alaska, and I ask you to bear with me today. I am definitely got some allergies going on, but bear with me and we'll get through this together. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it, looking first at the residential market. Now, the first thing we see on the single-family residential market that we're looking at here is that this time last year, there were about 180 properties available on the market, and this year there are 193. So not a huge increase, but that is kind of moving in the right direction. We're still lower, obviously, historically than we usually are, because around this time of year, it'd be more normal to see somewhere like 650, 700 properties. So the fact that we're not even at 200 yet just shows you historically how low we are, but that still is a positive trend in the right direction. The next thing we see is that the number of properties that actually sold went from about 125 this time last year to 138 this year. So that means that even though we are in fact seeing that there's there's slightly more inventory available than what there was the year before, we still are seeing a proportional increase for the number of properties that are actually selling. But again, historically, let's look at the proportions here. Normally around this time of year, we'd see somewhere closer 190 to about 200. So the fact that we're approximately 140, even with the inventory being historically low as it is, that really does speak to the amount of demand that we have in this market. All right, now I know what everyone's going to be asking me, really the reason that everyone tunes into these market updates anyway, and that is what is going on in the average sold price. Well, the average sold price, we look year over year, month to month. What we see is that for April this time last year, the average sold price was right at about $456,000, and this year it's right at about $526,000. So that is a big increase, but keep in mind this is only 1 month. So just 1 month. So let's not panic just yet. And hasn't gone up by quite that much every month, but we have seen a pretty steady increase year over year from what we've seen the year before. So this not a big surprise, and we'll jump into some of those factors and variables and what I saw and kind of diving a little bit more into the numbers, kind of give you a better picture as to what's going on. But yes, the takeaway right now is that the average sold price is going up for single family properties in Anchorage. Now, the next thing we want to look at is what's going on in the condo market. And the first thing we want to check out in the condo market is just the number of condos we have available on the market. And what we see is that this time last year, there were approximately 51 condos available on the market. Now there are 63. So yes, bit of an increase there. Let's look historically, though. Usually around this time of year, we'd see right around 400. We'll say about 380 to about 400 condos available on the market. So that gives you just an idea just how minuscule the condo market is right now compared to the inventory that we usually have. Now, looking at the number of condos that have actually sold, we see that this time last year, the number of condos that sold was actually 79, and this year it's 67. So we are seeing a bit of a dip in the number of condos that are actually selling, and I mean, that's with the inventory going up a little bit, and this can be chalked up to a number of different variables, but, with the inventory being so small, it's really easy to kind of see these numbers kind of go back and forth, but to kind of see them fluctuate, I guess you can say. So, sorry, allergy brain. And so not a huge surprise there, not a big swing either direction, and, really it's going to be in the summertime months where we're going to see that big spike in the number of inventory being sold for condos. So just something for us to keep an eye on as we move forward, though. Last but not least, we see that the average sold price for condos went from about approximately $267,000 to about $261,000 for the month of April, year over year. So what that means is the average sold price for condos this time last year was about $267. Now it's about $261. So bit of a decrease there. And, more or less, it looks like for the entire year to date, we are seeing that the price of condos is staying up, about this time last year. So it looks like some months it's up, some months it's down. So, I mean, it's really just kind of all over the place and not a big surprise there. But that does kind of just indicate that it's a smaller market. So you are going to see these fluctuations in the average sold price. Before we go any further, let's go and take a break real quick. For those of you who aren't aware, I do host a podcast called the Alaskan Journey Podcast, where we discuss what Alaska is like with people who actually do live here. And this is not just me jawing on and on and on. It's actually people who aren't me, who have lived here for a number of years or have recently moved up, and they have that perspective of someone who's recently driven the Alcan and have gone through all the issues that a lot of you are currently looking at. So do make sure you go check that out. And do be watching for our live streams. Those do come up bi-weekly or weekly at this point. So do make sure that you're looking for that. Now, let's go ahead and finish up today's market update looking at the multifamily market. Now, this time last year, we see that the number of multifamily properties that were available went from 40 to 61 this year. So that means that we are seeing a bit of an increase for the number of multifamily properties that are available. So that is favorable if you're an investor and looking at kind of jumping into the market. Do keep in mind, though, 61 is still pretty low because usually we'd see about 180, maybe 150 or so. The fact that we're at about 61 does, it's still low, but it's still an improvement from the year before, so I'm not going to bash it, but historically, still pretty low. The next thing we see is that the number of multifamily properties that sold went from 16 for the month of April sold last year to 31 that sold for the month of April this year. So we do see an increase for demand for multifamily here in Anchorage. And, I couldn't exactly say why. I think a couple of months ago there might have been speculation that interest rates were about as low as they were going to be. And so a lot of investors decided they were going to try to hop in and take advantage of the interest rates with them being what they are. That's one theory that I have, but obviously there's a lot more theories out there. Do feel free to drop yours down below and let's chat it out. Last but not least, we see the average sold price went from about $512,000 to about $483,000. So it does look like the average sold price came down a little bit as far as multifamilies go. I'm always a little hesitant to lean too heavily upon that finding, though, for anything we find, increase or decrease for the average sold price for multifamily properties. And the reason for that is that average sold price includes everything from the little duplex all the way up to the big multifamily, 30 plus, commercial multifamily property. So you can see why average sold price, it's not it doesn't give you as much information as it does for like the single family properties. So just something to kind of keep in mind. But yes, it looks like the average sold price did come down a little bit. That's really the only time for the entire year. So if anything, I'd say there's probably an increase across the board year to date, but it's just not, it's not like it was back in 2020 or 2021 where we were seeing nearly double-digit appreciation for multifamily properties. So still desirable to be a property owner and all that, and especially in a time of inflation where cost of everything is going up, which means that rents are going to go up, which means that your multifamily properties do become more valuable at that point. But, you just have to make sure that you're actually finding the right property, because not all fourplexes or whatever property it is that you're looking at are created equal. All right, let's go ahead and do that summary now. So my big takeaways: if you are a seller, the market still remains very favorable to you as you are, if you are looking at making a move in the near future. And the reason for that is the inventory is pretty low. And I know that there's going to be people out there saying, oh, it's nowhere near what it was in 2020, 2021. And for the most part, you're right. But that was also like a watershed moment. And that is just not the norm. And it's not what we should expect in a normal market without the influence of pandemics and all that other crazy stuff. And still a favorable market. You still do need to make sure that you're on top of like the marketing, the staging, make sure it looks good and it's in its best shape when you put it on the market. It's not like what it was in the pandemic where we could just throw anything out there, ask for anything, and almost with certainty get it. The interest rates are higher now, which does limit the buyer pool, but also it does limit the number of sellers who are out there, because those with the low interest rates are hanging on to their houses even tighter than they normally would, and that's creating a housing shortage. And this is really what we're seeing. And this is what I was talking about before when we were talking about the average sold price. Really what I'm seeing in the market right now is that the higher price points are kind of hanging on to what they have a little bit more than what we'd see in kind of that mid-range. So if we're looking at Anchorage, somewhere around that $400-500 price range is more or less mid, and Anything above that, we're seeing those folks kind of have a tendency to hang on to what they have right now. Either that or they're going on in the market and people just aren't biting very much just with the interest rates being what they are. So for that reason, it does look like the average sold price is going down, but anecdotally, it's if you're in a price range that's not that upper price range, you're still probably going to have to compete, and it's still you're still not just waltzing in like you did, pre-pandemic and negotiating a bunch of crazy stuff. You can get some of that some places, but it's not what it was before. So don't expect that going into it. I suspect if there are price decreases, it's probably just because the properties in those higher price points are not selling, probably because they're not on the market like we saw before. Now, if you're a buyer, what all this means to me is, we're not expecting to see the market crash anytime soon. So if that's what you're waiting for, you're probably just going to keep waiting, because as long as the inventory is as low as it is, I am just not seeing the market crash anytime soon. You have to have a flood of inventory available in order to see that occur, and we are just not seeing that happen. Now, the best thing you can do is take control of the stuff that you actually do control. You do control a lot of aspects of your finances, believe it or not. Yes, you do. And being able to control that stuff and put yourself in a position to win is going to be the best thing you can do for that. Additionally, there's just a lot that goes into buying a house, and it's hard to throw that into a summary, but yes, get a good real estate agent. I hate to pat myself on the back, but get a good real estate agent who can quickly get to the stuff that we're looking at, because keep in mind, just because you saw a property on Zillow and, doesn't mean that 50 other motivated buyers also did not get the same one. So speed to lead, speed to get to the property is still going to be very important. So expect to move quickly, not as hectic as it was back in 2021, but you still got to be ready to move pretty quick. All right, I think I've rambled on enough here, so thank you very much for watching and for kind of humoring me with my allergies today, but thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.